everyone, and welcome to another episode of the RK Leadership Podcast, where we enable tomorrow's leaders through the sharing of knowledge, experience, and inspiring stories. I'm your host, Rob Cameronpour, and my very special guest today is Craig Meriwether. Before I pass it on to Craig to kind of introduce himself, I would like to take this moment to say thank you very much, Craig, for being with me on this podcast today and your willingness to share your inspiring stories with the audience today. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Rob. I really appreciate the invitation. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm glad it's finally here.
Awesome. So you ready to get started? Let's rock and roll. So Craig, your journey from struggling with anxiety and depression to becoming a clinical hypnotherapist is inspiring. Can you share a bit about your personal story and what led you to the hypnotherapy?
Well, it really came down to my own struggle, as you just mentioned, with depression and anxiety. It really kind of reared its head in my teenage years, and that was back in the 1980s. So, there's no internet to do any sort of research on, or there's they even have the medications, the Prozac and drugs like that, SSRI drugs, didn't come out till the late 1990s. So it was just, and being a teenager, you kind of really don't know any different. And so I just kind of sat with it for quite a while, because I think you get into a point where you just don't know any different. Like I just said, you just wear it like an uncomfortable coat. And so I just figured this is the way it is. And sort of like, how do you describe color to a blind person? If you've never really experienced that peace and joy, I guess maybe this is the way everybody experiences life. But it was really the birth of my son in the year 2001 that I decided to really start getting my life together, because my mother struggled with depression. I struggled with depression and anxiety, so it was a pretty good chance my son might struggle as well, whether it's nature or nurture, whether it's some sort of genetic trigger or some sort of mirroring what's going on in the home. I didn't want my son to have to struggle with it and deal with it. So I just started working on myself. And by then the internet's out there, at least the very beginning stages, been out for 3 or 4 years. And so there's a lot more information out there on what you can do. And so I started researching the techniques and the exercises and strategies, and I started working on myself. And it was, a lot of trial and error, a lot of, on and off, just with the busyness of life and a new baby and work and career and all that. But I would work on myself, and I created this toolbox for myself of things I could do. And one day I woke up, I was just lying in bed and realized I hadn't felt that depression, anxiety in a while. And I realized I'd really changed who I was, kind of rewired my nervous system, rewired my brain to feel differently, to feel better. And so I started, talking to other people about it, wrote a book about depression. And one of the things that helped me was hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. And so I mentioned that because when I'd read the books or the blog articles or do the research, a lot of times the book or the blog article or whatever it was would mention various things to do to help change your mindset, change how you feel in your body. And usually there are different things. The bullet points were different, except one. There was always one constant, and it was always hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, if everybody's mentioning hypnotherapy, and people I respected and people I looked up to, reading their books, I thought, well, maybe this is something to try. And I did try. And what I really love about this modality is that I'm not looking outside of myself to have someone else fix me, which I think a lot of people get stuck spinning their wheels with some other modalities, and not to put talk therapy on blast, but I think people sometimes go to talk therapy and think, okay, this person is going to tell me what's wrong with me and then tell me how to fix me. And of course, that person doesn't know you. That's why it takes months and months and maybe years just to get to know you, to even maybe have a slight clue on what may be the problem. But with hypnotherapy, as a hypnotherapist, I don't fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself.
Mm.
Because the issues we struggle with, the mindset issues, the belief issues we have about ourselves, whether it's something around confidence, we're not feeling worthy, or imposter syndrome, or something within the business itself, working, managing employees, or having to give that speech at the big conference, or you're starting a business and you have to get in front of some investors, or maybe just something within the home, within your relationships. A lot of those instructions on how to react to your world are, of course, within that unconscious part of mind.
Mm-hmm.
While you may not consciously know what the problem is, you unconsciously do, because you are literally reacting, being triggered by something in your external environment. Maybe you know what it is, maybe you don't. But your subconscious mind is reacting to something, trying to probably keep you safe, trying to protect you. May not be a very resourceful way of doing it, the way you are reacting with anger or anxiety or worry or overwhelm or fear, but it's trying to protect you. So you know what you're trying to protect yourself from, because I'm guessing it probably doesn't, that anxiety or that anger doesn't happen all the time. So you know what it is, unconsciously, certainly, but you know what it is. And that's what's so extraordinary about this work. And I had the opportunity some years ago to train as a hypnotherapist. I was doing things like writing some books and speaking and doing interviews and things like this. And I just kind of put all that on the back burner, as it were, because I had this extraordinary opportunity to train at a wonderful training school called Hypnotherapy Academy of America, 2.5 months of 500 hours of extraordinary training, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Wow. And so I grabbed that opportunity, and I've just been working with people ever since. And it's like I said, it's a wonderful way to help people, because again, I'm not the one doing the heavy lifting. I don't have to figure you out, because you already know what the problem is. So a lot of times just finding the right techniques and tools to help you heal yourself. Dr. Irving Kirsch calls this the non-deceptive placebo. Hypnotherapy is non-deceptive placebo. And we all know about the placebo effect. Any sort of research study, let's say a pharmaceutical company is doing research on high blood pressure medication, they have to have the control group. They have to have that one group of people that's receiving the sugar pill, because they know mind will heal the body. They literally account for that in their research. And so half the group gets the sugar pill, and a certain percentage of those people heal themselves. And so let's say, just for example, for our discussion here, 30% of the people in that study get better on the sugar pill. 30% heal themselves through mind alone, so their blood pressure gets lower, whatever the medication is. And then let's say on the real medication, 40% of the people get better on the real medication. They actually have to subtract 30%, because maybe they got better through mind as well. So really only percent got better on that medication. That's good enough. We'll put it on the market at $50 a pill. But nobody looks at, well, yeah, but more people got better healing themselves.
Yeah.
There's no big windfall from teaching people how to heal themselves. I usually work with people, 3 times, 4 times, 2 times, maybe 1 time, maybe 8 times. But generally I work with people 3 or 4 times. And so this isn't, a get rich quick scheme. This isn't, manipulating people into working with me for years and years and years. It's like, let's do the work and do the deep work, and let's move on with life. And so, and of course you can't patent somebody's subconscious mind. You can't copyright somebody's mind for healing. You can copyright a new medication. And so there's, great profit in doing that. But with showing somebody how to heal, we're doing it. We're not tricking people into doing it. A non-deceptive placebo. We're going to do it on purpose. And I appreciate you inviting me on the show, because I know there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of myths around hypnotherapy. Yeah. This isn't about control. I can't control anybody. I can't. If I could, smoking cessation would be 100% guarantee. Everybody would quit smoking. But there are people who don't want to quit.
That's
Even though
right.
they come to hypnotherapy, maybe their spouse says, "You're going to hypnotherapy. You're quitting smoking. I'm tired of the expense. I'm tired of your car smelling. I'm tired of just all the social anxiety around you smoking when we go to parties. You're quitting." Well, if the person doesn't want to quit, they're not going to quit. It's about your intention. Just as so I can't go into Las Vegas casinos and bars around the country and just snappy, wavy, everybody quits smoking. If they don't want to quit, they're not going to quit. Just as I can't go into prisons and hypnotize everybody to be law-abiding, upstanding citizens if they don't want to. I
That's
can't
right.
Elon Musk to write me $1 billion check because Elon Musk doesn't want to write me $1 billion checks. No matter how much I try to hypnotize him to do so, he's not going to do it. And so it's really about the person's intentions. I can't control anybody.
Yes.
If they do want to quit smoking, they're going to quit smoking. But I then can't hypnotize them to go rob a bank later in the afternoon, and we'll split the money because it's against their morals and their ethics.
That's
So
right.
I know there's a kind of maybe a long answer to a short question of who is Craig Meriwether, but the hypnotherapy is just a really extraordinary modality to create healing or to even just strengthen and improve qualities you already have, confidence or strength or power or joy or peace of mind, because you're the one who's doing it. And so you're
Exactly.
kind of going to find the right ways of rewiring your brain and resetting your nervous system in order to do that healing. There's certain techniques and tools to use, and I'm here to facilitate, sort of lifeguard while you swim around in the pool, but the healing comes from you. That's why this happens fairly quickly, because I don't have to figure you out, and I don't have to figure out what your problem is and then figure out a way to heal this problem, because you already know what the problem is.
That's right.
Granted, unconsciously, and maybe this is something that happened when you were a child through a very traumatic experience, and maybe you don't really remember a lot of it. That's okay, because those instructions on how to keep yourself safe are installed in your subconscious mind, and not to blame the victim or say it was your fault or that it should have happened, but you're the one who put those instructions in there. Again, not to say it was your fault, and more than likely it happened as a child unconsciously during a very traumatic experience, but you're the one who put those instructions in there on how to react to the world. So that means you're the one who can change them.
That's
You know,
right. Absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing that, Craig. So I've got a few follow-ups to what you spoke about. One is, what was the turning point in your life to say, hey, you know what? I need to turn my life around and I need to get some help, or I need to change who I am to get out of this whirlwind. And you talked about working on yourself, and that entails, I bet, on like creating new habits. And what were some of those habits that you created that were on the positive side?
yeah, I think a lot of the work I was doing was, I heard this analogy on Instagram the other day, and I thought it was really good. Someone was saying, I can take a glass of water and I can take a teaspoon full of dirt, and I can stir it around a glass, and then I can put a bunch of sugar in there, but the sugar doesn't remove the dirt, and
Mm.
probably doesn't make the glass of water taste better. You put a bunch of sugar in with all the dirt. You have to remove the dirt first.
Yeah,
And I think that's what a lot of what I was trying to do for myself is, before I just, came to the realization that I have to do the deeper healing work, was I was just trying to, I was trying to pour a bunch of sugar into my glass of muddy water.
mm,
And, yeah, it may actually make you feel better for a little bit, but it doesn't deal with the core issues, again, of which you may not even know what they are. And that's why, again, not to throw talk therapy under the bus or anything, that's a great healing modality. Everybody needs a coach, whether it's
mm.
business or relationships, or especially if you're an athlete or musician or something like that. But if you don't know what the problem is, what are you talking about? And you're just kind of spinning your wheels about, subset issues or side effect issues, which again can be helpful because it can
That's
help
right.
with relationships and how you communicate with people. But if it doesn't heal the underlying hurt and pain and wounds, then you're just kind of continually spinning your wheels. And for me, it got to the point that you probably heard the expression, probably later listeners and watchers have heard that, I just got tired of being tired. Got
Yes.
sick and tired of being
Okay.
sick. And it was just that kind of thing. I just got tired of being depressed. I got tired of being anxious. And you get older and you say, oh, it doesn't have to be this way. Especially you read this book, you read that book, you read Tony Robbins and whatever's going on in the 1990s. And you see how other people are, and you wonder if I could do that too.
That's right.
Maybe, people are just wired differently, and maybe people like Tony Robbins or the happy people you see on TV or your friend in your friend group or your family even, it's like, okay, maybe that's just the way they're wired or the way they're built, and I'm built differently. But you would, as you move through life and you have experiences with family or friends or just going to a beautiful place on vacation or having an extraordinary day at work or something, or just helping somebody, and you feel wonderful.
Yeah.
And so you can do it. So the task becomes how do you extend that for longer periods of time?
Mm.
For me, I have my work. I think everybody, has some, to a certain extent, knows what they need to do to make themselves feel better. Of course, exercise is a big part of that. And
Yeah.
in this world of ours where we sit most of the time, this is actually a very new thing. Sitting for most of our day is a real new thing within the last 150 years or so. We were people who walked. We didn't have cars, we didn't have subways or buses or trains or things. We walked everywhere, got on our horse and carriage. There was a lot of effort and work and exercise in life. And it was very rare to just have to sit all day long. Maybe if you worked for the king or something, you did that, or worked for the president. But really, I don't know when, but you're looking somewhere in the 30s, 40s, 50s when we went from a agricultural and maybe more factory-oriented society, and now everybody's working in an office nowadays and on their phones and working on computers, and we sit, and our bodies are not meant to sit. We're literally, we've had hundreds of thousands of years of walking and gathering and hunting and all these kind of things, and farming, and so exercise is extraordinarily important. So many research studies, hundreds, show that exercise will cure depression as well as helpful as medication. And not just, help with the side effect, but if you exercise your body, the depression will fade. Problem is, if you're depressed, you don't want to go out and exercise. You just want to
That's right.
to kind of, stab in the back of that one. But in terms of myself, I have a lot of different exercises, techniques, whether sort of meditative exercises that help reset my nervous system and reset my brain chemistry. And I do them throughout the day. I realized a long time ago, because I'd always have my list. I was like, well, I need to do, 45 minutes of exercise. I have to do yoga, and then I need to do my Qigong. Then I need to read a chapter of my book, and then I need to meditate, and then I need to pray, and then I need, we're talking about 7-8 hours worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes to get to work. So what am I going to do? And I never have really, unless I'm on vacation or something, never really gotten to the point where I can do all those things every day. And even when I'm on vacation, we're usually running around doing stuff. So even then, it's like the dream of, an hour to meditate and an hour to do yoga and an hour to do Qigong and an hour to pray and an hour to read. And it's not going to work.
That's right.
Especially our busy society and culture that we have today and busy work lives. So I find these 5-minute little in-between times to do the work. Even really quickly, just to throw one out there, there's an exercise, and it's meditative exercise that was developed by Richard Nongard. Dr. Richard Nongard is a wonderful psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, and it's called 3-2-1 reset. And the 3 is just 3 slow, gentle breaths, and the deep breathing into your abdomen not only resets your nervous system because you're activating the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is a big part of that parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. And so being attached to the lungs, by breathing slowly and deeply, you activate or you stimulate the vagus nerve, therefore you activate the parasympathetic. So, and this brain of ours takes 20% of the oxygen we breathe in. And you, Rob, and probably most of your listeners have probably seen a drawing or a picture of a lung in a biology book or something. It's really narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. If you feel where your lungs are, the rib cage is like 2 inches from your hip bones. The lungs are huge, but we
Yes.
don't utilize them enough because we're always kind of stress breathing, just breathing into that top narrow part of the lungs. We're probably using 1/10 of our lung capacity. So you take deep breaths into your belly, you flatten out the diaphragm, you get air into the bottom of your lungs. This brain of ours takes 20% of that oxygen. So of course, the more oxygen you can breathe in, the more nutrients and fuel you can send to your brain for rational, calm thinking. A lot of stress and anxiety and that tunnel vision or that tunnel focus when we get stressed is caused by our brain not having enough nutrients to operate at optimum potential. And so breathing deeply and gently, of course, is going to calm down your nervous system, but also fuel your brain. So 3, 2, 1 reset, 3 slow, gentle breaths. And then by creating bilateral stimulation, and this is movement that you can do on the left side and the right side, because the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. And when you're feeling, let's say, panicked or anxious or very afraid or very angry, you're lighting up part of the right side of the brain. Brain only has so much blood supply, oxygen, nutrients, fuel, so it vacuums up all that nutrients, all that blood supply and oxygen to operate that panic and fear. And so these other parts of the brain go dark. So when you move your body, even if you just say, here's my little stress ball, and if you just move your body like this, just if people are listening, if you reach out with your hands to make a T or a cross, stretch out your arms and then pass a ball or a pen or whatever it may be from hand to hand, and then stretch your arms back out, you start operating in different parts of your brain. Where's that energy coming from? It has to pull it away from that panic and anxiety, and that feeling state goes down. If you may remember, maybe back in high school or maybe a meeting last week, somebody drumming on their knees. They're not hyper. They're nervous. They're anxious. And so they're trying to calm themselves down by patting on their knees. It's bilateral stimulation. They know it makes them feel good. And walking, left foot, right. Walking is good. That's why I think people are doing talk therapy or some sort of coaching. It should be outside while walking, or at least in an office with a couple of treadmills, especially guys. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know if there's any science or research behind it. But, sitting across from somebody, looking eye to eye, I don't think for guys is a great way to be vulnerable and to put it out there what you need to work on. Man, what if you were to walk side by side out in the park, or at least, again, if the weather ain't so good, as they say, you're walking on a treadmill or something, you're moving your body, your left foot, right foot, you're creating bilateral stimulation, so you're calming the nervous system down, and then you can open up about what it is you need to deal with without the vulnerability of somebody staring at you into your eyes.
Yes.
I'm going to patent that someday and put it out. Anyway, bilateral stimulation, 3, 2, 1 reset, 3 slow, gentle breaths. With the 2, we're going to grab take our 2 hands and grab our shoulders. And this is the bilateral stimulation, because you're grabbing your shoulders. You can give yourself a big hug, do the havening technique. Let me save you all $3,000 to go to havening workshop. One big aspect of it is just rubbing your hands up and down your arms. And so by rubbing your hands up and down, or just giving yourself a hug, you are now changing your brain chemistry. You're now turning off the adrenaline and the cortisol, the stress hormones, and then creating oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. Just by hugging yourself. This is nurturing, loving, healing touch. And so by sending that signal from your nerves back up to your brain, because you know that thing when you touch a hot pot, a signal goes up your nerve into your brain. Hey, you're touching a hot pot, let it go. It goes back down, you let it go. You're doing the same thing, only now you're sending the language of healing, language of love, language of nurturing yourself with this hug from your nerves back up to your brain. Your brain's reading that and going, oh yes, let's create oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, the feel-good hormones. And then to supersize this, think of somebody you want to give a hug to, somebody you care for, a good friend. It could be a family member, a child, maybe somebody who's no longer with us, your grandmother, your grandfather. It could be a pet, maybe your dog or cat, or maybe another pet, maybe somebody you've never met before, Gandhi or Mother Teresa or I don't know, John F. Kennedy or whoever. And as you're as your body is feeling this hug, your mind is lighting up the visual part and thinking of that person, and it just supersizes the whole thing. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. That's why a nightmare feels so scary. No matter how crazy and stupid it can be. A cheeseburger's chasing down the street, throwing coconuts at you. It's ridiculous. But even in deep sleep, your brain will start creating that adrenaline and that cortisol, diverting 300% more blood to your big muscles to fight, 300% more blood to your big muscles, your legs to escape, all because a cheeseburger's chasing you on the street. So imagine what's happening in your waking life, but imagine taking control of that. Mm-hmm. And so one way of doing this, 3, 2, 1 reset, 5 minutes, 3 deep breaths, hugging yourself, so you can start creating that different brain because you're literally hacking your brain, and then thinking of that person, visualizing, imagining, pretending that person is there, and you're hugging that person, and it'll literally change your physiology. It'll your immune system. It's lower your blood pressure, put you in a more resilient, more resourceful state. 5 minutes. And so there's lots of different exercises like this. And again, it's like I wish I, in my day, had the 5-6 hours to do all those things that are on my wish list, to meditate and to exercise and to qigong and yoga and all that stuff. But if I have a busy day, well, here's a 5-minute thing I can do. I know will reset myself. And I think the biggest thing I've learned just through my own experience, I've talked about my own depression, my own anxiety, is there's a relentlessness to this work. I'm sure you, Rob, and all the people listening, this. Probably just within business, just within your career, within work, within family, there's a relentlessness to this. But I think especially around creating joy and happiness and peace, there's so much coming at us, especially nowadays, that are trying to disrupt that on purpose, to keep us afraid, to keep us in fear, to keep us aged, because it keeps our eyeballs on whatever we're looking at. And they want that because then that's more advertising money, blah, blah, blah. The drill. So what can we do to reset that? And again, there's a relentlessness to this because we're getting inundated from everywhere. Back in the day, it was just 3 channels and maybe one for PBS and the rerun channel, so you could watch the Andy Griffith Show or something. And that was it, and then we got Blockbuster and we could go rent a video, but no one had a video cassette recorder. So you had to rent one from and it's just because they were all like $800 in 1980. And nowadays, I don't know how the kids are doing it. You're just being inundated. We used to just be bullied from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday, Friday. Now the kids are being bullied just 24 hours a day. So you wake up at 7 o'clock to get ready for school, and you're being bullied already. Yes. It's 11 o'clock. You're going on whatever social media thing. You're being bullied. It's like it's constant, and it's so disruptive to just your peace of mind and body. And so again, there's a relentlessness to it. It's just like there's a relentlessness to your physical health. You just don't get to go to a personal trainer once and then go to the gym twice and then you're set for the rest of you're going to the gym. A lot of people probably remember Jack LaLanne from the 60s and 70s. He was a big health guru here in America. And he was kind of the Richard Simmons before Richard Simmons came out. But he would be on all the talk shows, Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas and all those shows, Dinah Shore. And he'd talk about health. And he was a vegetarian and he was a juicer and he had his own blender and he had his own line of gyms and his own exercise equipment you could order from the 800 number and all that stuff. But he would talk about health and how important. And he was the guy people might remember on his birthday, he would swim across a lake pulling rowboats with people in them. And that was his big birthday feat of strength. Into his 70s and 80s, he was doing this. And he was still working out the day before he died at the age of 96.
Wow.
So it's relentless. The Dalai Lama still meditates every day. The guy's 90 years old. And so there's a relentlessness to this work. Even if you look at a master like Jack LaLanne or the Dalai Lama or a master musician like Yo-Yo Ma, considered one of the greatest cello players, not the greatest cello player alive today, he still practices every day.
That's right.
Any 10th degree black belt in Taekwondo still practices every day. And so what is it that you want? What do you want to master? What do you want to get a black belt in? You want happiness, joy, confidence, peace of mind and body? You can have it, but what are you practicing? And that's why I like to tell people, there's what you practice, you get better at. Of course, we know that. Whether you're playing piano or guitar or violin or learning martial arts or learning dance or a foreign language, learning to walk as a child. What you practice, you get better at. But what if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing fear? Or you're practicing lacking confidence? You're just going to get better and better. You're literally going to wire that into your brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I think like discipline is also, so important to build those habits and the relentlessness you're talking about. So Craig, many people struggle with fear and anxiety daily. What do you see as the root cause of these feelings, and how can hypnotherapy address them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So your subconscious mind, all of ours, not just yours and mine, Rob, but everybody's subconscious mind, it's here to protect you. It's for you. It may not seem like that sometimes, especially if you're struggling with chronic anxiety or fear or anger or worry or something like that. But your subconscious mind is for you. It's trying to protect you and keep you safe. Its main job is your survival, which does not necessarily mean your happiness and your success. It just wants you safe, protected, and alive. And so it'll hold on to past trauma and hurt and pain as a way to kind of look at the world and filter, your five senses through these files. And if anything looks like one of those old files of danger, of hurt, of pain, that where you got wounded, it'll warn you. It wants to warn you that there's danger in your external environment. Now, somebody pulls a fire alarm in a building, the sirens go off, the lights go off, warning everybody that there's danger, you need to get to safety. But we also have a warning system. But instead of lights and sirens, we have feeling states. The feeling state of anxiety, the feeling state of fear, the feeling state of anger, the feeling state of overwhelm and worry. There are warnings from your brain to your body trying to get your attention that there's danger in your external environment somewhere. The problem is your mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Again, that's why nightmares feel so scary. So it doesn't really know whether that's a dangerous situation or it's an imagined scenario that isn't dangerous to you. So it has this kind of safety protocol of shoot first, ask questions later. Yeah. So it'll warn you. The big problem is what you practice, you get better at. So if you keep practicing anxiety and fear, you're literally wiring that into your nervous system and into your brain. And so your subconscious mind, yes, it's running your immune system and running your digestive system and beating your heart and breathing through your lungs and all the stuff we don't have to think about, splitting our cells, all this stuff, things we don't have to think about, which is great. It holds on to those habits that we have, like tying our shoes and riding a bicycle and driving a car and zipping up our jacket and all those things, again, we don't have to think about. But its main job is to keep you safe and protected, and it'll emotionalize those old wounds. And even if it maybe happened yesterday or last week or last month, it'll emotionalize them because, again, it doesn't want to experience them again. So it wants to warn you if it ever encounters something that may look like that. So it's this highly emotionalized part of mind, the subconscious is. We have the conscious mind, of course, that's the logical mind, the analytical mind, the part of mind where you create your goals, the plans to achieve those goals, the willpower to go after those goals. But what neuroscience tells us, what neurobiologists tell us, is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious makes up 95% of mind. So when there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time. And that's why, you oftentimes can't logically analyze your way out of a problem, a feeling problem or an anxiety problem or a fear problem, because it's not a logical problem, it's an emotional problem. And that emotional problem is held within that 95% subconscious mind. That's what I think is brilliant about hypnotherapy, is we're not working with the conscious mind. This is nothing like talk therapy, nor is it anything like controlling you or anything like this. It's about quieting down that conscious level of mind and then working within the subconscious oftentimes just asking, what is causing all this anxiety? And it can be that simple. Okay, well, now that we understand what the problem is, what needs to be done about it? Okay, and let's work through that and allow that to happen. So you install new instructions on how to keep yourself safe. And so, there's no control here. It's actually giving back control. So to a certain extent, you're already out of control. If you're struggling with anxiety and anger and fear and worry and lack of confidence, you've already hypnotized yourself. You weren't born with that. You learned that somewhere and then practiced it. Yeah, maybe through a very distressing event, a traumatic event, but it's something you've installed within your subconscious mind. So you've already hypnotized yourself to a certain extent to react to your world in an automatic way. You might even know why. So a lot of this work is not hypnotizing you, it's dehypnotizing you. So you go back to who you are at your very core. And so it's not so much controlling you as giving you back control. You take back control. And a lot of people, know hypnosis from the shows they may see in Las Vegas or at comedy clubs or on YouTube videos, late night TV talk shows or something. And it's really unfortunate because when you really look at that situation of those, let's say a show in Las Vegas and everybody's singing like Elvis Presley or dancing like Michael Jackson or quacking like a duck or barking like a dog or riding a roller coaster or whatever the gag is, every single person up on that stage volunteered to be up there. Again, this is about your intention.
That's right.
And your intention was to have fun, was to entertain. They're extroverts, they're exhibitionists. They want to have a good time. That's not how I want to have fun. And probably not you, Rob, and a lot of the people listening. That's not the way they see themselves having a good time. But a lot of people, they think that's really fun. They buy a ticket to a show. And those are expensive tickets in Las Vegas. They buy a ticket to a show. They sit in their seat, and when the hypnotist comes out and say, hey, let's have a fun time and a good show, and who wants to come up here and have a really good time? A lot of people raise their hands because they want to be that goofy person up there and that experience. And okay, all right, do whatever, a lot of people like to ride those huge ass roller coasters too. It's like, okay, you do you. But every single person volunteered to be up there. They want to do that. And so they do. Their intention is to have a really good time and watch them. At the end of the show, they have a big smile on their face. They had a good time. Nobody made them do anything. For all you can figure out, they're faking it, because they're embarrassed that they're not hypnotized. And if they can't be hypnotized or they got up there to try to screw with the hypnotist, they'll be kicked off the stage. They'll be excused. I don't think you're ready for this. You seem really stressed or whatever. And they'll kick them off the stage because the hypnotist, people are paying $70, $80 for a show. Hypnotist has to give a good show. And so the hypnotist is going to look for people who want to do it, who are able to do it, and then will do it. And that's a skill you have to learn as a performer like that. But they're there to entertain. And so they're going to bring up people who want to entertain. And so that's why they're up there dancing like Michael Jackson and singing like Elvis Presley and all that, because they want to. So imagine what it would be, what would happen if you want to heal. What if you want to get rid of that trauma and that hurt? Even if you don't know what it is, I have people fill out an intake form. Oftentimes we talk on the phone beforehand to see if it's a good match and explain a little more about the work of therapeutic hypnosis. And when they make an appointment, I send them an intake form to fill out, because oftentimes a lot of the work I do is over Zoom nowadays. Probably 85% of the work I do is over Zoom with people around the country, around the world. And I'll send them an intake form. And some people may write 7 very detailed, specific paragraphs about what they want to work on and what has happened in their life. Great, perfect. I have other people just write one word: anxiety. All right, that is what we work on, because you know what that means to you. If that's how you define it, and that's what you want to focus on with that spotlight, then that's what we'll work on. Because again, you know what that means to you. And I'm not here to tell you, well, it's got to be more than anxiety. I mean, certainly something must have happened in your child. Tell me more about your mother. No, you know what the problem is. And more importantly, you know what to do about it. So if you just want to define the entire thing with one word, so I'm, just say anxiety, or just I've been struggling with anger all of my life, or, fine. That's what we work on then. Or I don't know why I'm anxious. Okay. I know you don't think you know because we're not working with the conscious mind. We're working with the unconscious. And you know the effort it takes your body and brain to create anxiety. It's quite
Yes.
extraordinary because your brain has to shut down all the oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine if you're having a nice day. And then it has to start creating the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol. And Rob, probably your listeners have heard of the crazy stories of the grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's adrenaline doing that. That's not coursing through your brain, entering your bloodstream. It's creating hundreds of millions of molecules called neuropeptides. These
Mm.
molecules get into your bloodstream and send the signal of emotion to the cells of your body. That's why you feel like that. You can differentiate anger from anxiety, from sadness to joy and happiness because of these molecules. These are literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety, molecules of anger coursing through your system. 300% more blood moving to big muscle of your arms to fight, 300% more blood moving big muscles of your legs to escape. It's got to come from somewhere. So it's turning down the power on your immune system. That's why people get sick when they're stressed. Turning down the power of your digestive system. That's why people get irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, when they're
Mm.
your heart rate goes up. You're starting to sweat to cool down your body. It's extraordinarily hard to create the stress response. And so you know why you're doing it. It just doesn't happen willy-nilly automatically for no reason. To create that kind of effort within your brain, within your mind, within your body, you know why you're doing it. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously you absolutely 100% know why you're doing it because it's only happening at certain times.
That's right.
You know, it may be there's the very rare person who's maybe anxious 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But more than likely you're anxious maybe a lot, but not all the time. So why are you only anxious in these certain situations? I mean, I know people, they are the kindest, most wonderful, compassionate, loving people you've ever met, but you get them behind the wheel of a car on a freeway, oh my God, they turn into the most enraged, angry people you've ever met. Frightening what they say to other people as they're driving down the road because they left their blinker on or they cut in front of you or they're riding your tail or whatever. But then you get them out of the car and they're the most loving people, most wonderful. They, be best friends with Mother Teresa. And so what is that switch? How have they hypnotized themselves
Mm-hmm.
in this certain situation, this certain environment of sitting in a car going whatever, 70 miles an hour? It literally changes their personality, almost as if there's some, like multiple personality disorder or something. How have they hypnotized themselves to literally change how their brain is working, how their mind is working, how their body is working? And again, so a lot of this work isn't so much hypnotizing people because, like in that situation, you feel, yeah, I get so angry when I drive a car. You're already hypnotized.
That's
Well,
right.
let me hypnotize you from that because you're such a wonderful, loving person outside of a car. So, we're not doing anything in hypnosis that you're not doing to yourself already. It's more like Dr. Irving Kirsch. This is a non-deceptive placebo. We're just going to do it on purpose. We're going to do the healing. We're not going to trick you into healing. You're just going to heal yourself because that's what you want to do, and you're ready for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Craig, you've worked with a wide range of clients, from cancer patients to veterans. Can you share a success story where hypnotherapy made a significant impact on someone who is dealing with severe anxiety or trauma?
Yeah, I'll give you two examples at both ends of the spectrum. A few months ago, I worked with a 9-year-old child. He had been struggling with nightmares for 2 years. 2 years of every night having a blood-curdling, screaming nightmare, so that his parents one of them would have to sleep in the bed with him. So now, wife can't sleep with husband can't sleep with wife because one of them has to be in bed with the kid because he has these extraordinarily horrible, awful nightmares where he wakes up screaming. Of course, he's not getting good sleep. Mom and dad aren't getting good sleep. They're going to the counselors. They're going to the doctors. Nobody can seem to help. My wife, I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. My wife runs the Northern Arizona Massage and Wellness Clinic here, of which I have an office. I put my office in there, which is nice. But they do massage there. My wife was massaging the mom. As you can imagine, she's probably pretty stressed. And she was just kind of broke down and said, my kid just has nightmares every night for 2 years. We can't take it anymore. Nothing is helping. We don't know what to do. My wife said, well, why don't you see Craig? He does hypnotherapy. She said she just made an appointment. After the massage, she made an appointment. Didn't talk to me or anything. So I called her and wanted to get a little more information. Found out that her son liked Star Wars, especially the Mandalorian TV show. If people have seen that show, Baby Yoda and all that. And so he came in for his appointment. It's a 9-year-old kid, and he's in the lobby, and we start right away. I get down on my knees and say, hey, you're going to fix this here today. In fact, you're not going to leave this room until it's fixed. Is that a deal? And I understand you like Star Wars. And so, but I don't know. I just start talking to him, and we start work right then with eyes open under the lights of a bright room. And then we go back to the room. His mom's going to be in the room with us. My office doors close, and I say, I want to make sure that we're straight with each other. I don't want you walking into this room unless you're ready to heal this now. And I don't know if it's going to take you 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes. So I'm already implanting all these ideas like, you are going to heal this. It's up to you whether it takes a short amount of time or a long amount of time. You take the time you need to heal this, but you're not walking out this door until it's done. Do we have a deal? Don't go into this room unless you feel that you can do that. So he opens up the door, and then we start doing some more work with the eyes closed, the lights kind of turned down, and mom's there in the room, and the three of us, I'm focusing on him and creating visual a storyline on how he can now protect himself. And if people know the Mandalorian story, you know that Baby Yoda at one point put his kind of blue force field, like a ball, like force field around him. So I was like, okay, create that with Baby Yoda. And I'll put Mandalorians, because these are like, armored knights and space knights, I guess. I don't know, science fiction knights. They have the armor and the blasters and the all things. Put one on each corner of your bed, on top and on the bottom. And now that you're in this force field with Baby Yoda, now you've protected yourself. Now you have these guards. Let's run those nightmares. And so, and there's like monsters. And then another version was with aliens. Another version with ghouls and ghosts and things. I say, let's run the aliens. What happens when they hit that force field is they evaporate, they disintegrate. If they get past the Mandalorian, let's run it with the monsters. Let's run it with the ghosts. And now let's run it with everyone and see what happens to them. And when you know you've got this, when you know this can never go back to the way it was, open your eyes, walk out the door. 45 minutes. We're done. You've never had a nightmare since.
Wow.
And it's not that I'm doing it, it's that he's learning tools on how to protect himself using his imagination. Kids are great with imagination. Great with pretending. So 2 years of nightmares, one 45-minute session, and he's never had a nightmare since, because he learned how to protect himself. And the more he knows how to protect himself, that's how that just not going to boost his confidence more and more each and every day. Look what you did. And that's how I end it with kids. Like, you're one of the few people who have the superpower now. There's probably 3 9-year-olds in all of America who know how to do this now, and you are one of them. You're part of the Avengers group. Imagine how that's going to help you in school and relationship. You start planning all these things. So that's the 9-year-old. A couple of weeks ago, I worked with a 77-year-old woman. Again, she's one of those people who just said, I'm dealing with anxiety. All right, we can work with anxiety. And it was a Zoom session. The 9-year-old I was doing in person, this session with the woman who's about 77 years old, was over Zoom, and she lived in an entirely another state, and just wanted anxiety. So when we got to the session, I just wanted a little more information about it. And I said, well, when did this anxiety start for you? Did it start last week, start last month, start last year? She said, it started when I was 19.
Wow.
Okay. Now, I did not ask what happened at 19. She did not offer any more details about it. It's fine. We'll work with what you're giving me to build some trust, build some rapport. It's the first time I've seen her. And so I work with her. So we're doing a process where, like, one of the processes with anxiety is like, where do you feel it in your body? There's a feeling in your body when you feel anxiety or anger or whatever we're working on. And some people feel in their chest or the gut. She felt it in her head, all that anxiety in her head. What color? It's red. What does it look like? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it rough? Is it smooth? It's kind of rough, but really heavy. Is it big or small? It's really, really big. Okay, I want you to reach in there and grab it and pull it out. Like you're a surgeon. I want you to reach out with 2 hands. Now imagine this. Reach in with your hand and start pulling all this red negativity. And oftentimes people, especially if they're struggling with a traumatic experience, they're pulling for like 10, 15 minutes. There's a really long time when you're just kind of sitting there watching them and encouraging them and telling them they're doing it right and doing it perfectly. That's a really long time. She pulled for 48 minutes.
Wow.
Pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled. And then when she was done, she just opened up her eyes and said, "I'm done. It's done. It's complete." You know. And then was like, well, okay, great. Let's close your eyes. We'll finish up with a part 2, and now let's fill you up. Nature abhors a vacuum, as they say in science class. So what do you want to say? You want more joy, you want more happiness. What color is joy and happiness? It's green, or whatever color it was. Okay, bring that green into all the empty space and fill yourself up and spin it and make it, and this is the work. We don't have to spend months and months and months asking where that anxiety came from. We did a second session. We only did 2 sessions, and she's perfectly amazing because I keep in touch with her. But the second session, she explained the situation that happened to her when she was about 7 years old, and the traumatic episode that happened for an extended period of time to her. And it was somewhere around 19 that all the extraordinary anxiety got triggered. But it was really the core issue was when she was around 7 years old. And so that's what needed the deeper healing. We did 2 sessions, and she's doing fantastic. And also, give her exercise. Here's 3-2-1 reset. Here's this other exercise. Here's 5 minutes to just do that relentless work of keeping that joy and love filled up. So with 2 years worth of nightmares every night, that was done in 45 minutes. With this, some 60 years or almost 70 years, I guess, of extraordinary trauma, we did 2 sessions.
Nice.
This doesn't have to take a long time. Healing and change happens within an instant.
Mm.
It may be some lead up and some setup to that change, but change happens in an instant. Healing happens in an instant, negative or positive. That trauma that she experienced as a child, it didn't kind of slowly build over years and years. No, it happened in an instant. That trauma happened in an instant. That car accident happened in an instant. That fear happens in an instant.
That's right.
So why can't you heal it in an instant? Who said you couldn't? And what is it to their benefit that you don't heal this in an instant? And so this work is pretty extraordinary because, again, you're the one doing the work. I don't fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself. The subconscious mind will show you in your body where you're holding on to it. It'll give you the metaphor, the symbolism, so you can see it and somewhat disassociate from it as it's a red blob of, I've heard spiky red ball, I've heard black ping pong balls, I've heard black goo or gray mist or whatever. Fine. Pull it out. Whatever your subconscious mind is showing you, pull it out. And let's deal with it and put it behind you. And once you do that, I don't know, it's sort of like computer code.
Yes.
It can take you months and months and months to change that line of computer code. Just change the computer code. If you write your accounting software, accounting software for your business, and you put in there 2 + 2 = 5, it doesn't matter how much you type on your keyboard or slam your keyboard with your fist out of frustration, or talk to your friends about how unfair it is that 2 + 2 = 5, or write with a marker on your computer screen 2 + 2 = 4. It's not until you go into that computer code.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it is. That's odd. Well, erase it, amend it, edit it, delete it. Write in there 2 + 2 = 4. Press save. It doesn't take months and months and months to rewrite that code. Just rewrite the code and change it. And then the code's changed. Again, there's some strengthening and reinforcement and empowering. There's a relentlessness to it. Just because you get to your ideal weight at the gym doesn't mean you stop going to the gym.
Yes.
You still got to do the work. You still got to exercise your body, and if you're doing that for your physical health, certainly you must do that for your mental and emotional health. But when you heal, you heal. Change happens in an instant.
Absolutely.
So what do you need to do to get to that moment when you can do that healing change right then?
Awesome.
It might take 70 years. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Yeah.
Those are some great stories that you shared, Craig. So we've reached the segment where I like to call the rapid fire questions. I'm
Okay.
gonna throw some questions at you. First thing that comes to mind, talk away. What is the best advice that you've ever received?
Um, Probably what I've said over. I tell this to everybody: what you practice, you get better at.
Right.
Someone told me that some years ago, and in the guise of, are you practicing anger? Because we were talking about that. It's like, well, if you're practicing anger, are you not just getting better and better at anger? Just like if you practice the guitar, you're going to get better at the guitar. So you got to stop practicing anger, and you got to start practicing love and joy and heaven, or whatever it is you're looking for. And that's probably the best piece of advice I ever got in my life. What you practice, you get better at.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is the first step to take for people dealing with anxiety, depression, anger, etc., in order to turn their life around?
A lot of anxiety kind of depends on lifestyle, as well as not only the hurt and pain you have in your life. So I would say just do a quick scan of what you're putting in your body. How are you feeding yourself? What are you drinking? Are you drinking, 1 cup of coffee, or are you drinking 5 cups of coffee? These are stimulants, and even though it's just coffee and it's fun to drink, can hype you up, and especially if you get in a stressful situation, may make the situation out of control. So watch what you're putting in your body. Certainly, exercise is necessary, and really follow your intuition. If you feel that there's something more to it than you've just been sitting at a desk for the last few years and not eating well because of you don't have the time to cook good food. If it's more than that, seek out help. And again, I didn't mean to disparage talk therapy. I think that's very useful and very helpful. Everybody needs a second pair of eyes in their life, but find that modality that's gonna help you and follow your intuition, whether that's talk therapy or EDMR, the kind of the eye movement therapies, or breath work therapy or hypnotherapy. Something's coming to you, whether it's this podcast or you see something in an article, and if there's some deeper healing that needs to happen, follow your intuition, because you may not know what that healing is. But if your intuition is leading you towards a certain modality, I would just jump right in, start working with that.
Awesome. What is the one word that describes Craig best?
Curious. Constantly want to know more. And I'm heading towards 60, and I have on my list a couple of training programs I want to dive into in 2025, and I'm trying to figure out my schedule so that I'll have time. One was like a year-long training program. I'm trying to figure out how to make my life, because I just want to learn more stuff.
Amazing. And lastly, Craig, where can the listeners find you and learn more about what you do?
Sure. The name of my practice is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. I know that's a mouthful, but if you just go to Google and you type in Flagstaff Hypnosis, you'll find me, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I also have a course on test anxiety. So whether you're a high school student or university student or a professional, a lot of professionals out there nowadays, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or a real estate agent, have to take professional exams. This is on test anxiety. It's called ACE, Any Test, and that's a little easier to remember. You can find me at either place.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for being with us today, Craig. I personally learned so much about you and what you do, and I will definitely be talking to you offline as well.
Great.
And for the viewers out there, if you enjoyed this show, subscribe button, follow, and we'll see you in the next episodes. And again, thank you so much, Craig, and see you in the next episode, everybody.
Thank you, Rob.